As advertised, our discussion today and conversation today will be about both how to tackle the ongoing issue of unemployment that we've been discussing in this region for so long. The numbers are stark, 31% in the region amongst young people in terms of unemployment, but also the issue of how to skill even those who are in employment to be relevant for the jobs of today and tomorrow. So not only is this about tackling unemployment, but also for those who are in employment to continue to feel relevant and equipped for all the changes that we're witnessing, of course, with both technological changes, societal changes, and demands. And it's exciting because the two of you have partnered up to try to tackle some of those issues. So, Solveig, I want to come to you, ask you about Abu Dhabi School of Government, a relatively new entity here in Abu Dhabi, started in September, that has the task of equipping 60,000 Abu Dhabi government employees with the right skills. How are you going to make that happen?
Well, thank you very much for the introduction. It's thrilling to be here. And I'll start by just saying a little bit about the Abu Dhabi School of Government, because we are a very new entity opening in fall of last year. And we have been tasked with creating, upskilling and developing a learning infrastructure for the entirety of the Abu Dhabi government. And it is why I'm here, because it is one of the most exciting initiatives in learning today that I'm aware of, and it's an honor and privilege to do that. Our goal is to create a learning ecosystem that Abu Dhabi government employees can refer to as and when they need to upskill, to reskill, and to meet the needs of the ever-changing environments in which they find themselves. And that's why I'm really excited, because one of the things that we're doing this week, even as we speak, is launching our partnership with Coursera, because it's one, in my opinion, of the cornerstones of what we're going to be offering to those employees. And I think the learning will have a huge impact moving forward.
So, Jeff, tell us about this partnership with Coursera. What will you be offering to those signing up from the Abu Dhabi School of Government?
So just a little teeny bit on Coursera. Coursera was founded about 6 years ago by a couple of Stanford professors in computer science. They decided to put their courses online and then saw hundreds of thousands of people from around the world come to take these courses and thought, hey, there's a lot of demand for computer science. Mm-hmm. So what Coursera has done is we have partnered with 160 of the top universities around the world and 30 large companies like Google, IBM, Cisco, et cetera. And they have authored 3,000 courses across many different domains, but primarily business, technology, and data science. Mm-hmm. And these courses are now available on demand on mobile phones in multiple languages. And we have partnered with the Abu Dhabi School of Government, who has set up a competency map to say, look, these are the kinds of skills that we want our people to know. Mm-hmm. And what we've now done is we've curated this catalog. We've picked those courses from the Dukes, from the University of Michigan's, from Yale, to actually teach these skills. And they're available on demand, on mobile phones, and even in a hybrid live session with folks who are going to be instructors at the School of Government. So yes, today it'll be available to 60,000 people. It'll be localized in Arabic. Mm-hmm. But as the world changes and the content and skills change, this platform will be able to continue to provide effective, low-cost, high-quality education to everybody.
Because even in just the 6 years since Coursera's, launched, so to speak, there's been so much change, both in terms of reach, of how you can reach people instantly, but also changes in workforce requirements. So how do you make sure that it stays relevant and it's delivering? Is it through those partnerships with large companies?
It is. I think the companies have more to do with the context of the learning. Mm-hmm. The partners who actually produce the courses need to make sure that those new emerging technologies and skills are available on the platform. Mm-hmm. Especially what we're seeing with the rate of change is in data science, there's a data fluency that is really important across most of the business clients that we have. Mm-hmm. There's a tech fluency that's also important. And it's not easy to get high quality education from everywhere. So what we've decided to do is try to bring those university partnerships to large employers. And I'd say that the School of Government is the most significant employer agreement that we have so far. Mm-hmm. And we think this could be a very, a good model for other governments around the world to model, and also a long-term proposition that will scale even as the world continues to change.
So just to drill down a bit more into the partnership, Solveig, what's your vision for what you're going to do in terms of what teachings are you trying to pass on? What are the key competencies that you believe the civil service needs?
Well, I think success will be defined by creating a curious, knowledge-seeking culture within the government. The competencies themselves are going to depend very much on the entity and the individual, depending on their particular role. What I really love about the partnership is it addresses learning and competencies from two levels. One is the needs of the individual on demand as and when they need it. Learning needs to be immediate, applicable, and practical. We talk about the digital revolution and the change of technology, but that really needs to impact learning because people need to be able to say, this is what I need right now. I can't begin to know what an employee of the government is going to need to know in 5 years because they touch every part of the economy, every part of society. And as we've learned, as we all know from ourselves, that is every part of society is changing. And so for me to say, well, this is what they're going to need to know, this is the fixed competency, is lunacy. So what I need to know, I need to be able to create a curated set of data, a curated set of learning that people can go to on demand and say, I need this today, I need this now. Be it a modular piece of learning, be it a whole course, and that will have the kind of impact that will make the change in the culture. And I think from a government perspective, because again, it is in every part of society, it says this is what we will be able to do to regulate, to understand the needs of our constituencies the best. And so that's really what I'm hoping this component of the partnership will provide.
I have a couple little examples. So there's a course from Duke on business metrics for data-driven companies. Johns Hopkins has a data science toolbox. IBM has data analysis with Python. Rice has data analysis with Excel. Yale has a course on negotiation. So it's really a broad range of analytics, communication, leadership and management, data, strategy, public policy, research. It's a wide range of competencies that I think over time will continue to update as the world changes.
But you referred to localization, and that's beyond just translation. So big themes, everybody needs to know how to negotiate well, or, data is such an important part of our life now. In order to get anything done, you have to know how to process all this data. But then what do you mean by the localization? What elements do you localize?
Well, I think of localization in a few dimensions. When we think about learning, I usually start with content and say that content has to have certain type of knowledge transfer that's delivered through a learning experience. Turns out that mobile is really important. A lot of people are learning on the phones. That content delivered through this learning experience provides competencies, which helps people do jobs better.
Right.
So when we think about localization, we think about what are the jobs that need to get done? What are the skills that need to be learned in order to do those jobs? And then what kind of content in what languages are the ones that will teach those skills? So I'd say a lot of the localization happens when we talk to the School of Government, Solveig and her team about what types of skills you're trying to teach for this economy, for these types of jobs, for these types of learners. And then there's a type of localization, which is how do you deliver that in a language that people understand, in a context that people understand that really suits it. And then there's more localization, which is the way that the School of Government has integrated the learning into the career process of being an employee in the Abu Dhabi government. Maybe you could talk a little bit about personal development plans and how this is actually linked into the career development of the employees as well.
Well, one of the things that we want to make sure is, like I said, practical, relevant, immediately applicable. But we want to make sure that I think in all learning contexts, it should be transparent and clear and linked to the architecture, the hierarchy of their jobs. So we are working with the HRA, for example, to build the competency model into the performance management system that goes across the government and is consistent across the government. We're working with the HR in each entity to help them create personal development plans that link to the courses that we're offering, Coursera and others, so that it is clearly visible as part of their career path and projection.
Right. But increasingly we see in the modern day workforce, young people who are entering particular jobs usually are thinking 1, 2, at most 3 years. This is no longer the workforce that says, I'm going to stay 25 years with an entity and work my way up. So how do you plan for that?
how do you plan for that
Yeah, for
consistent
the changes,
transition?
where people are changing, are thinking, I'm going to go to the next jump. I might leave to the private sector.
Well,
Or do you not?
you do and you don't. You hope very much that you're creating, in any sort of learning ecosystem, employees of choice. You would like these people to be sought after because, quite frankly, if you create a reputation and an infrastructure that generates high quality employees, that's a good thing. You're helping, because ultimately I represent the government. We are trying to help build and diversify the economy. If I can help in part do that by creating employees that are sought after and engaged with their industry, that's the pinnacle of success, really. Now, and as far as the employees themselves, you create a learning ecosystem that's consistent, broad-based, and across all the government entities, so that there is a common language, and a consistency, so that as new people come in, they're groomed, they are trained, they understand the structure they're walking into. More senior people can help develop them through that process. And if I am accused one day of losing too many people to the private sector, I will have succeeded in my role.
Well, there's another thing too, which is that labor markets are competitive, and I'd say that for institutions who are thinking maybe I'll hold back on educating my people, well, do you really want the people who are going to stay? I think attracting good talent, really,
Right.
I think the expectation is going to be, as an employer, if you want to attract good talent, you need to have programs to develop talent and retain some of your most talented people.
Because that's what I wanted to come to you at, that it's that journey of lifelong learning that we now talk about that really wasn't around a decade or two ago in the same way that it is now. So it's almost an expectation from ambitious, strong, competent employees that want to see how they're working together. So in your partnerships, beyond working with government, how much is that a part of the thinking of the organizations that work with you?
It is definitely evolving quickly. We today have 38 million learners from around the world on Coursera. In the first 2 years that we offered Coursera for Business, we have 1,500 companies around the world who've hired us. So we now have a lot of experience with many companies around the world, and it's becoming very clear to a company that the skills demands are changing so quickly. And at the top end, the competition for talent is pretty fierce, that being in the business of training your people and attracting people who maybe aren't going to be there for their whole lives, but do want to learn while they're at work is critical. Another thing that's should be kind of obvious, but doesn't seem it's immediately apparent to folks, is when we say lifelong learning, you have to expect that people are going to be working, which means that learning is going to happen at work. You're not going to stop your job every 5 years and go back to campus. And so the whole idea that you learn as you work and you can earn, whether that's just course certificates or full degrees. We just launched an Ivy League degree with University of Pennsylvania, it's a master's in computers and information technology. So from open courses all the way up to Ivy League degrees, these are available online, and they're very high quality. And that's, I think, what's going to be important to deliver truly for lifelong learning.
So if I was working for one of the government entities here, Solveig, and I signed up for some of the courses, could I possibly go and complete that course and get an MBA somewhere in the US? Is that on the cards?
Well, the entirety of the curriculum is very diverse. And while we are a new entity, a lot of it is still being launched and created. Ultimately, we would like to have a full portfolio of courses available that include professional, certificate and ultimately academic accreditation. So while I'm not able to say today that we can do that, that is the long-term vision, to be able to build the learning portfolio that each individual needs, because it's consistent across the government, but tailored for the individual to make sure that it is the most relevant and applicable to them. The leadership of the government of Abu Dhabi is very visionary in their investment here. It's been a tremendous undertaking, and what has excited me. And because the UAE is such a young country, it's really at a very interesting kind of inflection point in its development. And so to have a moment to stop, create the learning infrastructure for this, to be able to move forward and to meet the vision to Adan 21 and other things is really very exciting, and I think ultimately will be very grand and get tailored at the same time.
Yeah, we also, on our platform, given that we have so many learners, we have 2 million learners in the Middle East, we have 170,000 learners from the UAE. In the courses that you take you do these assessments and you answer questions, and we mark every single question that was right and wrong, and we can kind of benchmark people's skills in different domains of business, technology, data science across multiple regions. What I think is kind of interesting, so we did a little benchmarking of learners in the UAE compared to learners in the broader Middle East population. You find that on a global basis, learners on our platform from the UAE are at about the global median, but UAE is well ahead of the other learners in the Middle East. And so I think this is an example with the School of Government that visionary, forward-thinking employers and governments already are in the lead, and when they put these types of systems in place, it will likely be a way to accelerate that lead and hopefully be a model for other governments as well.
Can I ask about those who are not in employment at the moment? And one of the things that really concern people in this region is that if you've been out of employment and out of education for more than 2 years, it becomes increasingly more difficult to go back into the workforce in a job that in any way matches your ambitions or where you'd like to go. So how does Coursera or the thinking behind Coursera help people that are out of employment find a way back in?
So I think that we have a program that we launched with Google called the Google IT Support Professional Certificate. And it's a set of 5 courses authored by Google on Coursera. It assumes you have no college degree and no background in computers. And you can take these 5 courses, and if you pass this proctored test at the end, you get a certificate from Google. And we and Google have signed up about 20 hiring partners who are looking for IT people who know how to do IT in the cloud. This Google IT certificate is a great way to get initial employment. Well, we're just about to launch a Bachelor's of Science in Computer Science from University of London. They've decided to award credit to anyone who finished the Google IT certification. So I think this idea that you have stepping stones to these degrees, it's not get a college degree or not. It's you've been out of work, you don't have a background in computers. Here's a way to start learning an accessible domain of computers, IT. And from there, you can build up and either earn a bachelor's in computer science or maybe you go into cybersecurity. And once you have the bachelor's, we have now 3 different master's degrees in computer science on Coursera. So I think it's much more stepping stones based, and it's a way for people to get back into the job market if they haven't been in it for a few years.
Because one of the concerns is exactly that access to jobs, to even to know about Coursera, to even think to go there and search for it is something that's not attainable to millions of young people, whether it's in this region or around the world. I mean, Europe, Latin America are also struggling with a young population that doesn't necessarily have the right opportunities. So taking you away from the hat of Dean of Abu Dhabi School of Government, Solveig, but with your rich experience in this, thinking about how you tackle inequalities by increasing these sorts of opportunities.
Well, I'll take the hat off in just a moment, but before we do to add on to what you were saying, what we are doing through the ADSG is trying to also reach out to job seekers to help reskill using Coursera as one of the tools for them, because the government mandate is very broad. So to make sure that is something, just to put out
there.
So
it is part of your mandate.
It is part of our current planning related specifically to the Coursera launch. Now, related to the broader question of how you make learning more accessible, how you raise that awareness, and I think it is, I think kind of the universal question of learning and something that I've spent, most of my career certainly in this region doing, and I think it is, again, about having in whatever context you're in, having a curated quality set of learning available, and then working with organizations and individual HR, learning and development, job seeker organizations to make sure that they have an understanding of the resources available to the people who are seeking it. Because learning has to be, we have a huge mandate, but learning is an individual sport. It is not something you do in a stadium, in a group environment. You have to win the hearts and minds of the individuals, and really, it's a one-on-one process. And I have to say, again, putting the hat back on, I'm sorry, I'm very excited right now because the group of learners I have encountered here through the ADSG in the Abu Dhabi government is by far one of the most excited groups of learners I have ever engaged in my career.
incredible.
And so I know for certain that we will be able to reach the hearts and minds, reach find the pieces that people need to apply and grow and implement them within the government, thereby reaching the vision and the goal, because the energy and the passion is there. Mm-hmm. It's just a question of making sure you find what it is that motivates the individual. You mentioned a moment ago the need. It's not about checking the box if I have the degree and therefore I can get a job. People need you have to meet people where they are. You have to meet the individual where they are, and whether that's the level of the education, the needs they have today, because people are motivated by the same things all over the world. They want to feed their family. They want to have a good job. They want to be part of society, be contributors. But you can't, everything is not aspirational. You have to meet individuals where they are and create an incremental process that will allow them to be successful long term. And that is globally how you reach learners, how you help transform them if they're job seekers or otherwise, or if people who consider themselves underemployed. There's lots of people who wish they could get to the next level. So, and it's not always about stepping out, going to get a degree and coming back. It's about finding the incremental step they need right now to make a difference.
Jeff, can I ask you, there's such competition for the top level talent around the world, and with increased mobility and so forth, even though we have certain parts of the world that are less excited about migration, but in general, again, coming from the UAE, it's trying to attract the top talent that it can. Are skills and talent now the new currency for economies? Is that what the world is most in need of?
Well, yeah. I mean, a way that you might think about that certain authors are talking about is if you think about where in the value chain is actually value created, a certain percent comes from humans and a certain percent comes from non-humans, i.e. machines, robots, etc. The general perception is that the percent that's coming from non-humans is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Which means that the things that the humans do are going to have to get more distinctive. And I think there's going to be greater competition among people to differentiate and to signal the kind of talent that they have. Mm-hmm. There's a large expectation that as computers and automation do an increasing number of the tasks that are performed today by humans, humans are going to have to upskill. And so I do think skills are the new currency, and I think that whether that's at a company level and you're trying to keep up with a quick rate of change in your customer behavior, or trying to keep ahead of your competition, or for a government thinking about their workforce and their economy, skilling up people is going to be essential. It's not clear that unemployment rates are going to go down, certainly in the absence of education. So I think people are looking at how do you upskill folks to keep up with the rate of change that we haven't seen before.
Solveig, I want to ask you now, you've got the Abu Dhabi School of Government, you've signed this very important agreement. What's the next big thing for you? What is your thinking about, in addition to, of course, getting all the infrastructure set? What's the next big thing for you?
Well, I think we very much view this as a long-term ongoing evolution. Learning is honestly, I don't even know what the employees of 5 years are going to need to know. I think there was a quote this week at the World Government Summit. The LinkedIn presenter said that of elementary age students now, 65% of them are going to be in jobs that don't currently exist. So I have no idea what I need to teach people even for 5 years from now, because we simply don't know. I need to create, again, a creative, curious, knowledge-seeking culture that knows how to interpret, critical think about data, and apply it relevant to their employment. What I would consider the next big thing, quite frankly, would be a charge to employers almost, and to the market at large, saying, rethink the way you value and measure learning. Because it's the endless problem of you want one thing and you reward another. And that's exactly true with learning. We kind of check the box. You have a master's degree, you have an undergraduate degree, and I'm a big fan of them, don't get me wrong. My career has been in education. But there's an inherent kind of, okay, you're done, philosophy that goes with a lot of it. And so with courses like, the certificates I'm with Coursera, the Google and others, with even modularizing that, we talk about badges. There's lots of alternative credentialing that are coming out and learning that I think the market needs to embrace much more enthusiastically from a employment standpoint, because it would have a huge impact on unemployment if people could get modularized certifications that could build into something, and it would encourage learners, it would give them the carrot, it would give them a reason to continue to learn, because let's face it, it's a job and a hobby for me, but people have lives, people are busy.
Yep.
We have to build that into the infrastructure, and I think that would be a really big thing to be able to build a more sustainable, a more supportive ecosystem.
Jeff, we have to wrap up, so tell me, what's the next big thing where you're concerned?
I think global access to lifelong high-quality learning is, that was 6 years ago, that was the mission, that's still the mission. I think we're still in the very early stages here, but technology is getting better. The quality of education is getting more accessible, and I think these types of models will be something that other employers and governments can follow. So we're really excited to be working with the School of Government.
Well, congratulations for your partnership. Thank you for sharing your news with us, and thank you to our great speakers.
Thank you.